Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going over the College of Mercantile Bard from Griffin's Saddlebag, Book 2. This is the second of 12 subclasses. Yes, 12 from their second book on here. They were so gracious to sponsor an entire series covering all 12 subclasses. So they have some of the biggest, best homebrew content in 5th edition, so make sure you check them out. I have a link down below for that. If you're new to the channel, we're going to go over the roleplay, combat, and synergy ratings and rate them based on how they improve the base class abilities from the subclass. Don't forget, guys, to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our new round of D&D Beyond Players Bundle giveaway. But all that being said, let's just jump straight into it. Alex.
The artwork is so fantastic.
It is.
Something when I see art, I want it to mean something in a book like this. And I think with every single one of these subclass title pictures, if you see it, you could guess guess exactly what the subclass be about, and probably get close to game where the title is. I mean, really.
Yes.
This artwork is no different. We're gonna flip coins. What we gonna do?
Love it.
Starting off at level 3, you get coin flip. A creature that uses a bardic inspiration die from you can choose, and that's a very important thing.
Yes.
Choose to forego rolling the die altogether and flip a coin instead. If it's heads, the creature treats the bardic inspiration die as if it rolled its maximum number. I'm like, well, that sounds fantastic. That's because it is. If it's tails, however, it does not act like it's a minimum. So this is not a min-max thing. It's much more interesting than that.
Oh, yes.
The GM, or DM, whatever you want to call them, takes the bardic inspiration die and can use it when another creature of the GM's choice makes an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw instead. I can just see him. He's just like, oh, yes, lovely. The GM can have multiple bardic inspiration dice at a time in this way. They can still only add one of them to a roll at a time. When you finish a long rest, the GM loses any of these taken bardic inspiration dice.
Yes. Love that. So much to talk about that in the roleplay section, so stay tuned for that.
There's so many possibilities that creates, for sure.
Second on here, also at level 3, is Magic Coin, which, love it. You know that coins can be just as powerful as the most enthralling rhetoric. Whereas other bards may use words and songs as their means for conjuring spells, you instead use a simple coin.
Yes.
You can use any coin worth at least 1 copper as a spellcasting focus for your bard spells. In addition, you can use an action to magically fling a coin from your hand at a target within 60 feet of you. Make a ranged spell attack with the coin using your charisma modifier for the attack roll. On a hit, the target takes 1 bludgeoning damage plus 1d12 thunder damage. Immediately after the attack, the coin returns to your hand. If you roll a 20 on the attack roll against a hostile creature using a non-magical copper, silver, electrum, or gold piece, the coin is magically duplicated when it returns to your hand. The new coin can appear in your hand, at your feet, or in a coin pouch on your person. Your choice. The coin's thunder damage increases by 1d12 when you reach 6th level to 2, and at 14th level to 3d12. So, yeah, lots of things to talk about this one as well. There's a lot of comments on these.
Yes.
But before we get to all of that and the last 2 abilities of the subclass, we're going to give a quick thank you to our second sponsor, which is the Humblewood Tales Kickstarter from Hit Point Press. This is an addition to the first Humblewood campaign setting. 5 new adventures, pre-built NPC or character options on there, magic items, all kinds of lore and stuff that goes along with the world they've already established. The first book was fantastic. We covered all the subclasses in that. Make sure you check that out as well.
Pre-made adventure, especially if they're smaller ones like this, is a good way to kind of dip your toe into being a DM if you haven't before. The really cool opportunities, some really clever, well done, very interesting characters even that they put in with these adventures. For sure. Very worth checking out, for sure.
Yeah, so link down below.
Back to the abilities. And we all know that money talks. At level 6, you're going to know that too. You can enchant a mundane piece of copper, silver, electrum, gold, or platinum that you're holding in this way and using as an action. A creature holding that coin that knows at least 1 language can understand the meaning of any word you speak. And when it speaks, you understand what it says. Even if you don't actually share a language, as long as it knows a language, like you can't give it to a bear all of a sudden. You can start talking to a bear. That's going to take, speak with animals kind of thing. In addition, you have advantage on the first persuasion check you make when negotiating the value of a good or service with the creature that's holding or carrying the enchanted coin. Alternatively, you can use an action to see and hear through the enchanted coin to the start of your next turn, as if you were in the coin's space. During this time, you are deaf and blind with regard to your own senses. The coin remains enchanted for 10 minutes or until you end the effect early, no action required. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of once. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest.
Oof. So many things with that one. All of these abilities, there are so many thoughts on these.
They're so fun and creative.
So much
wonderful.
And then lastly on here we have Shrewd Consumer at level 14. Whenever you cast a spell that consumes a material component, drink a potion, or use a spell scroll that's worth no more than 500 gold, there is a 50% chance that the component, potion, or scroll isn't consumed. Yep. In addition, you can use your bonus action to take the use an object action or drink a potion. So it's some nice extra utility on there as well, outside of just not having a chance of not consuming a component.
Yep.
But those are all the abilities gained in the subclass. So we'll move on into the rating portion of the video. First up is the roleplay value. Asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay value, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass, how they might improve your potential in those role play scenarios.
That's right.
So, all that being said, there's a lot going on here with the Bard, which is not uncommon for Bard subclasses to focus a little bit more on the roleplay side of things. As they are.
It's very funny that
traits.
Alphabetical orders, you go Barbarian and Bard, and one is like, it's Barbarian, it's
More
a rage
focused.
monster, it's going to punch things, and Bard is a
Lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, lover, not a fighter, so it's like, you get one extreme or the other right there off the front.
So, coin flip. I absolutely love this ability.
Of course he does.
As a player and as a DM.
No, I agree, completely agree.
As a player, I love these like all or nothing consequence kind of abilities.
Because it is completely up to you. Well, it's up to the person you give your inspiration to, whether they want to swing for the fences or not. And if you play with fun people, 9 times out of 10, they're swinging.
You're swinging.
Unless you really only need like a 2, like a very small number, and you know it to get over the hump. Yeah. Like if you get a spell attack and you miss by 1, you're like, I'm not going to risk it. I just want the roll the die. But
So there's that. But the other thing to think about that as well is even if you do lose, on average, you're going to have much more impact by flipping than not flipping.
Correct.
Because if you take the full maximum amount, say you're at the highest Bardic Inspiration, which would be a D12, you're adding 12 to your roll.
Yep, that's so much.
If you fail the coin flip, you give it to the DM, but the DM
has to
roll
it. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
On average, they're only going to get a 6, maybe 7.
Yep.
So you're going to get a 12 versus giving the DM a possible 6 on average.
Yes.
And it is 50-50 as well. So on average, you're winning.
Yes.
Even if you do lose sometimes.
Right.
So that is very interesting. I love that concept on there. Again, as a DM, I hope you flip it every single time. I just love to see crazy stuff happen. Like you roll heads, you win. You roll tails, I win, but in the end, we all win.
Yeah, because it's the same reason why Wild Magic Sorcerer is so much. Every best story of a game involves a Wild Magic Sorcerer because
something crazy happening.
We legit. Quick sidebar. I know we're not talking about Wild Magic Sorcerer, but again, this goes into why this is so fun. We did a one-shot run by a friend of ours where he actually got a break and got to play for a change, and where we were literally down to maybe 1 or 2 total spell slots in a party of 5. Final boss fight of the one shot, and friend playing Wild Magic Sorcerer rolls summons random creature, charges at boss and kills boss.
Yes,
true story. Absolutely happened. So again, hilarious. When you get to play, D&D is already a luck based game because there's dice. But when you kind of semi get to control that luck, then the choice becomes yours.
Right.
It just creates all the fun opportunities.
Yes, and good fun memories and stories as well, which is what the game's all about.
Right.
That being said, on to the second part, which there's a whole aspect to this, essentially a cantrip that you get from the coin attack.
Mm-hmm.
But the duplicating of the coin can actually be relatively impactful. It is only a 5% chance to duplicate it, but if you're playing in a low-level setting or a low-income campaign,
that's right.
Doubling gold coins, even if it's only a 5% chance, is still going to have some RP value.
It doesn't cost you anything. I just imagine somebody who sees this is just randomly flicking coins at people or at animals until it just hits something. It's like, I'd like to try to break the window with the coins when it does damage.
Crazy stuff.
Just try to replicate their money all the time. Anyway.
Yes. And then the money talks thing is just great. It's great.
Yes.
You can communicate with any humanoid, essentially. Mm-hmm. Some gray areas on there as well, outside of humanoids, potentially. Great for, it's basically almost like a scry. So you can scry, you can negotiate better, you can communicate with stuff. Huge RP on that. So many things that can be done with that ability. And there's some niche RP with the spell scrolls and material component stuff. Maybe you want to cast a certain spell or you want to use a certain spell scroll, but you're not sure if it's the best time to use it. Well, if you use it, there's a chance it doesn't get consumed, so maybe you can use it again later, which kind of makes you the guinea pig for potions and spell scrolls. So that's interesting as well.
We found this random potion. We're in the middle of nowhere, don't know what it does.
Right. So, definitely interesting on there.
I'll try it.
So the big thing on here is something you don't see very often, which is every single ability has potential for roleplay.
It does.
And even though the magic coin is only just a chance to duplicate some money, it definitely, money comes into roleplay because you have to spend that money at some point in time, and you're interacting with social encounters to do so. So,
and it does come back to you too. Is the other thing,
right?
So you could
you're not losing money.
Yeah, and you could play with that kind of wow some people as a distraction. I could see in town. Like, oh, check this out! Bing! Snap a coin at somebody, come right back to you.
Pay someone, you hit them with it.
Yep.
And they think that it dropped to the ground, and they're trying to scramble to pick it up because you overpaid with a gold coin.
Yeah.
So, but you just peace out. Yeah. You just really stole it because. So there's stuff that can definitely be done with that as well. Yeah. But every ability potential 4.5 out of 5. So 4.5 out of 5 on the roleplay. Big fans of this on the roleplay part.
On to the combat side of things, and again with such a high, synergy. It was a high synergy score. Whew. My goodness, such a high roleplay score. Usually combat isn't going to be quite as high a lot of times, and okay, but think about things like this. Again, the coin flip thing. Like Jameson talked about earlier when we were just discussing the abilities, the payoff you get and your party gets for essentially getting aggressive and testing your luck, unless you guys have players like me or one of the other guys in our group whose luck is just garbage as a general rule. We do have the extremes of luck in our play group.
We absolutely
because our rogue is stupid lucky.
Yeah, natural 20s all the time.
Yeah, and then me and or one of our other players, not so much. So it kind of balances out. But the payoff for you taking that risk, more often that's going to benefit you, but there is some risk to that, which creates good opportunity, but it's also, if you get down into the nitty-gritty math mechanicals,
risk reward.
50% chance you get max to 50% chance they're on average going to get half. It's worth that risk most of the time, but the important thing is, and I emphasized when I read it, it's a choice for the person, because if you really only need a 1 or a 2 for that ability to succeed, whether it was a saving throw, a attack roll, whatever you're using the roll for, then you're like, oh, I've got a D10 in my hand, or a D8 in my hand, I only need 1 or 2, it's not worth risking a 50% chance to hit it if I only need a 1 or a 2, because I've got a 75% chance to succeed.
Exactly.
Again, choice, fantastic. The magic coin thing, it sounds like it's primarily just a fun thing. But here's what you got to think about if you've ever played a bard before. Or freaking cleric. You have zero, and I repeat, zero access to attack roll cantrips.
Yeah.
They do not exist for you as a general rule. Now, there may be some unearthed arcana spells out there, homebrew stuff.
Certain subclasses or magical secrets.
Right, so official baseline spells for Bard, so we're talking about Bard right now, you don't have that. You don't have a lot of damaging cantrips in general, let alone ones that are spell attack rolls. So, and as a general rule, when you get to later in games, things are more likely to have saves. Even if they have higher armor classes, you're going to have a pretty good high chance to hit with your spell attack roll anyway. It's a better chance of hitting that than an all or nothing on a save.
Yeah.
So, and the damage does scale. It's a decent damage type with Thunder. It's not
middle ground.
Yeah, it's not force or psychic, but it's not fire or cold damage.
Right.
So it's fine, and it does scale up to 3d12. So that feels reasonably well. And
it's always nice to roll a d12 as well. You don't get too many options.
If you're not a barbarian, you don't get to do that very often. And a very high level bard, it's about the extent of the d12s and a very few spells out there. So that's great, and the fact that it can, it always comes back to you. So you never like run out of coins. You've always got ammunition on hand to do a cantrip damage. The money talks thing is going to be, again, strictly RP based. The only combat arguments you could make, again, with other effects and abilities like this, is you could gather information in an RP setting that would help you for combat, but it's not going to be used in combat. And then the shrewd consumer thing definitely has an adjacent combat effect, because if you drink a potion and a 50% chance that it's not expended, and you still have that same potion, whether it's a heal potion or a potion of giant strength or whatever it could be, as long as his value,
cost value.
Yeah, but still, low-level spell scrolls, that could be very nice to have. If it's a very specific utility spell that nobody else knows,
right,
you're going to be the one casting that sucker every time to make sure that there's at least a chance you get to keep it around. So, with all of the abilities being more RP focused, with the exception of the magic coin thing, but again, to a certain extent, all of them, with the exception of the money talks, really have at least some combat efficiency as well.
Right.
So we did go with a 3 out of a possible 5. Again, it is a bard, so you're getting more RP focus, but there's definitely some interesting combat, especially with the first 2 abilities really early on,
right,
at level 3.
Yeah, right off the bat, which is always nice to get. Then moving on, lastly, into the synergy side of things. Again, the all or nothing for the Bardic Inspiration is very interesting, if anything.
Oh, yeah.
But again, as we've mentioned, stressed already, is the value is typically going to be worth it more times than not. And of course, you have the choice as well, which is huge.
Yeah.
The bonus to spell components can be very beneficial if they do go off, or you're trying to save certain things. It's always nice to have that chance to not consume something.
And I guess that's something I should have brought up again, but emphasize, it does let you use the use object action as a bonus action, so you're able to do that. Use potions or spell scrolls.
You're the guy in combat that's, go pull that lever or whatever. You can do it more efficiently than, someone else has to use an action to do something. So you do kind of fall into a little bit more, even more into the utility role side of things for combat, especially with certain, boss fights or mechanics that, if your DM likes to throw in these little puzzles in fights,
yes,
you're going to be even more impactful for that.
Instead of jack of all trades, you become master of all trades at this point.
There you go.
Just do all of it.
And then, of course, getting access again to a spell attack cantrip is greatly appreciated for bards, because Vicious Mockery is great, but sometimes it's better to just have an attack roll instead of a save.
Especially later on.
If you're fighting stuff that just has proficiency in whatever your save is for your cantrips, it's like you can't do anything if you don't want to cast a spell slot. And sometimes you feel bad casting spell slots when you want to save them or whatever. Yep. So some nice, interesting stuff on here. Really ties into the flavor of Bard, emphasizes the things that you're good at, gives you some alternative options to some of your weaknesses. So we went with a 4 on the synergy out of 5.
Yes.
Very fun, interesting, thematic, if anything, subclass for the Bard. So big fans of this one, especially in the roleplay. I love it as a DM and player. It's just so much fun.
And again, anytime we see, whether it's 5th edition official stuff or if it's homebrew stuff like this, we like stuff that's unique, stands out on its own. It's okay, if this is going to be a new subclass, it needs to feel unique in flavor, mechanics, some way to make it stick out from all that's out there. There's a bunch of stuff out there.
Yeah, and this is one that definitely does.
Oh, yeah.
And there are more in this book here, so stay tuned for those. Thank you again to Griffin Saddlebag. Love these subclasses, guys. You will enjoy checking them out for sure, guaranteed. They have some of the best homebrew stuff of anyone in 5th edition. And yes, I said anyone because they have some of the highest quality stuff out there. Yes. Speaking of high quality stuff, we also have our other sponsors, Humblewood.
Yeah.
Kickstarter for the Humblewood Tales. Hit Point Press, always pumping out good stuff from them. So make sure you check that out. Add on even more to your Humblewood box sets and lore and all that stuff. Give your players more options to do more in that world, which is a really cool environment that they built.
And D&D is one of these things where if the more options you have, it just creates more opportunity for unique builds and fun, interesting combinations that somebody wouldn't think of. It's like, oh, I compare this with this, and well, that's kind of fun. It's the more stuff you got on hand.
And one of the things I like about Humblewood specifically as a setting is it goes outside of the norms. So you're not dealing with like elves and humans and dwarves. You're dealing with like birds and foxes, and like the races are completely different, which can really mix up and just kind of like refresh. Yeah. If you're like getting like a stale thing of the same old. It
just feels straight up just like fantasy stuff all the time. Traditional. You could step outside that world a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So that's always appreciated again. So if you enjoyed the video, guys, remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications when our new videos are coming out. And as always, thanks for watching. Yes, 12 subclasses from Griffin's Saddlebag. Dang it! Griffin Saddlebag